Sarah, welcome to the Body Love Binge podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And I don't know if you know, because I don't know how many episodes you've listened to, but when I have a guest, I like to ask 10 rapid fire questions to break the ice at the start. So are you good to go with
Okay.
that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, number one, three things that you love.
Ooh, the color yellow, pasta, and going to the beach in the summer.
Amazing. Number two, a quote or a mantra that you love or that you live by.
Oh, everything is a projection.
I see that one. Number three, your favorite food.
Pizza.
Same, pizza and chocolate.
You gotta get the sweet and the salty.
Exactly. Number four, do you have a favorite season of the year? And if so, why?
Definitely the summer. In my life, everything is better in the summer. I have more time off work. My mental health is better. It's warmer outside. Like I said, I love the beach. I love to get a nice tan. So yeah, I'm more relaxed at the beach. So everything about the summertime for me.
Which matches with the color yellow, right? I guess.
Mhm. Mhm.
Bright and cheery and
Yeah.
vibrant.
Very sunshiny personality.
Oh, you have. Like, I follow you on Instagram, which is how I know about you. And you are such a light and a sunshine for others. And I love your
Oh,
content. So thank
thank
you.
you. I
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Of course. Okay, I love asking this question. Number five, the most ridiculous diet you've ever put your poor past self on.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question because there's so many. Let me
Yeah.
think to like put myself back in that headspace. I think that the most ridiculous because of the mindset I had behind it and kind of like the illogical lies that we tell ourselves to justify behaviors like that is veganism for me, like a very normal, straightforward diet or food choice that's so easily I justified as caring about the environment, caring about animals. And for me, it was just to cut out, I was already vegetarian, to cut out another food group to therefore cut my calories even more. So I think that was the most ridiculous because I'm really good at lying to myself, and I lied to myself a lot to justify that because I love dairy and I love cheese and I love animals and the environment, but that was not why I did it.
Yeah, the eating disorder voice is so sneaky, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It really is. And if you could describe a life of food freedom in three words, words would you choose?
That's such a good question. Because I don't think we think about life afterwards, after all the food struggles often. It doesn't seem real to us until we're there.
Yeah.
I think I would say confidence in yourself and your food choices, calmness because you don't have all of those obsessive thoughts anymore. Like the quiet in your brain is unparalleled. Confidence, calmness, and trust. Just trust in yourself.
Oh, I love those. Thank you for sharing those. If you could reincarnate as an animal or a mythical creature, what would you choose and why?
Mm, hmm. I think I would choose like a lion or a cheetah because they're so fierce. I think a cheetah because I would love to run really fast, love to just be in a body that can perform like that and just, I don't know, I feel like just really appreciate the uniqueness of the speed and of the character like that.
I love that. Are they like the fastest creatures on Earth? I think cheetahs, are they?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And I'm curious if you feel the same as me with this question. What currently, with whatever is in the world, because it changes, like, the fashion changes, what diet, or for the podcast, I'm going to do quotes here, healthy lifestyle plan really pisses you off at the moment when you see it on Instagram?
Um, we can talk more about this later because I would love to get into it. But the that girl trend on TikTok and on Instagram too, but mostly on TikTok that I've seen, that one drives me crazy because it's not outwardly, a diet where they're saying eat this many calories a day or avoid these foods or work out for this amount of time, but it's this, gosh, it's my eating disorder and so many people's eating disorders rebranded and idealized into an quote unquote aesthetic. And it drives me crazy because it's trends like that as a whole, not the individual people making these videos, but the trend as a whole that I used to witness on Instagram and then on TikTok as well, and feel like I was never doing enough, like I needed to be better to have this perfectly aesthetic and therefore healthy life. And I think what's important to note is that the majority of people who have created videos under this trend of my that girl morning routine or my that girl workout plan are thin white women. So it subconsciously pushes this idea that if you act like them, you'll look like them. And in that sense, it's what I think most people would call, oh, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. So
yes,
that one drives me crazy.
I'm looking forward to asking you even more about that because I'm not on TikTok. So actually I'm not 100% sure what that is. So I have questions.
Oh my gosh. I will get into it with you. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Almost. Number 9 we're on now. What was the hardest thing for you, Sarah, in terms of your journey to food freedom and self-love where you are now from where you were?
That's a great question too. The hardest thing. I think the hardest thing was being honest with myself in the eating disorder recovery and food freedom process, because like I said earlier, I'm really good at lying to myself. Those eating disorder thoughts are really strong. And I spent a lot of time in what I call and what I've heard other people call like pseudo recovery, where you believe that your mindset is healed, that your behaviors aren't disordered anymore. And they were more reformed than they had been, but I still had a lot of subconscious like food rules and fears and high anxiety foods and ways that I was holding myself back essentially. So that was the hardest, to kind of have a moment with myself and be like, am I really loving myself unconditionally and accepting the weight gain, or is this again me lying to myself? So
Yeah, great, good one. And the last question, I reached out to you to ask you to come on the podcast, and obviously I'm so grateful that you said yes, but why did you say yes to coming on and sharing your message?
I said yes because I see, number one, if there's any free time in my schedule where I can connect with somebody and enhance how far both of our messages are going to spread around topics like this, and I am all for that because I love the collaboration in this community. I think there's so much healing in community. So I love to collaborate with other people on topics like this. And also, I have been thinking a lot lately about the place where we are in the beginning of our journey, whether it's eating disorder recovery, food freedom, body image, and seeing people online who are where we want to be and feeling like the gap between where we are in that moment and where we want to be, or where these other people have gotten to, the road between those 2 points feels so unclear, feels impossible. You often look at people like that and you're like, how did they get there? I'll never be like that. I have no idea even where to start. And through creating my online course and essentially creating that plot line, that journey outlined in a course for people, I've realized how important it is to show people like, these are the steps that you can take and this is how you can get there. So any way that I can share that, including an experience like this, I am happy to participate in.
And I'm so glad you are and doing what you're doing. And those of you that don't follow Sarah, obviously everything's linked below. Go and have a little stalk on her Instagram, and you can favorite people. So you're one of my favorites on Instagram. I don't know if everyone knows this. You can, if you go on your main profile, I believe, and if you click at the top, like this little arrow down, you can choose your favorites. And that's what I do because, you know, I follow so many incredible people, but then Instagram only shows so it's impossible to show everybody everything. So I favorite Sarah, so I recommend you do the same, and me as well. Favorite me too.
Thank you. I love that tip too. I need to go in and do that. But Instagram's algorithm, and I hate that word, but Instagram's algorithm is so wacky these days, where I go on my personal account's feed and it's like somebody I follow, and I'm happy to see their post, and then an ad, and then a reel from a stranger, and all of this content that like I didn't subscribe to. So I love the favorites tab for that reason.
Yeah, and also I loved what you posted the other day, and I took inspiration from that. It made me laugh because you basically put a photo and made it into a reel, because you were like, you won't see this unless it's a reel, so clearly just going to speak over this photo that I wanted to post as a photo. So here it is.
Yeah, it's wonky trying to get our messages out there on Instagram when every week Instagram's like, let's do something different. It's like, I like stability, please. I can't go with the flow unless I know where the flow is going. So
True that. So yes, favorite us, beautiful listeners. Okay, so before we go into the questions that I have for you, Sarah, can you share a little bit about your story, where you started, and then how you're doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, I love this question because I start somewhere different every single time, because this experience with food and with our body image, which is what I focus on as a coach. I'm a body image and food freedom coach for my clients. It starts so early, and we can pinpoint so many places where we feel like our journey began. So for me, where do I want to start today? I think it's important to remember that when we're going through food freedom, learning food freedom, embracing food freedom, releasing the obsessive food thoughts, it all comes from somewhere. And for me, that came from my experiences when I was a lot younger, even though my food behaviors and food mindset weren't disordered until my late teens, early 20s. My struggles with food started probably as early as I can remember. I grew up in a family where we didn't have a lot of money, so food was scarce. We always had enough to put on the table, and I'm very grateful for that, but it was a very conscious process every time for grocery shopping. I didn't get to eat a lot of like takeout when I was younger, which sounds so silly now, but like everyone was going home on a Friday night and having pizza with their family, and we couldn't do that kind of thing. So I had these immediate perceptions around food, that food was like a scarce resource that we had to conserve, that I had to be very protective over, which started this internal scarcity mindset for me. So whenever I was presented with food, I felt like I had to eat as much as possible so that I always had enough, or to, I don't want to use the word like hoard it, but conserve it. Like I always have, I'm still to this day the girl that always has like a snack in her purse, but that comes from a very traumatic place where I was always making sure that I could grab as much as I could when I was able to. So I had some limiting mindsets around food from the very beginning. And then I struggled with my body image a lot around the same time, like elementary, middle school, because I was bullied. Kids weren't nice to me. I went to a very small school in a small town. So you were either in or you're out. And it was one of those situations where I was essentially friends with my bullies, because frankly, there weren't many other people around. So they were kind of stuck with me, and I was kind of stuck with them. And I took a lot of flack from people for a long time when I was younger, elementary and middle school, because I was so young and didn't know better. But a lot of that centered around me being the biggest girl in the friend group, or the biggest girl in the room, or the least athletic on the team, or things like that. I got a lot of comments about my body and about my clothing, because again, we didn't have a lot of money comparatively to other people in my area. I grew up in a very white, privileged area. I'm from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which is like a gentrified vacation spot. So compared to the other kids in my school, I did not compare with the clothing, with the things I had access to. And I developed almost like a scarcity around food, around my body, that stuck with me through my early teens, my late teens, through college. And then when I was in college, I spent pretty much all of college. So for me, that was ages 18 to 22-ish, on a quote unquote weight loss journey, which was very soon an eating disorder, went into disordered habits, which turned into an eating disorder, which I finally started to recover from in college. But basically all of those pre-existing circumstances, and then being put into a new environment of like being 18 years old and wanting kids at school to like me, made me feel like I needed to be skinny to be liked because I was bigger and not liked when I was younger. And you parallel that with all of my jumbled food mindsets from when I was younger. And I had a very rocky relationship with my body and with food for all of college. So I struggled with orthorexia, which is a form of anorexia, where I was obsessed with this idea of being quote unquote healthy. And of course, it wasn't healthy because I couldn't allow myself to eat foods without crying, like my favorites, like pizza. And I had to go to the gym to earn my meals. And it was all of those disordered mindsets. But yeah, I went through recovery on my own. I didn't go to like an outpatient or anything like that, but I went through recovery when COVID happened because I was a senior in college. And if anyone was in college in the US at the time, I know that for us, we said, oh, we're going to be out of school for a week and then we'll come back. And we obviously never came back because we didn't understand the severity of the situation. So when I left college, I packed a bag that was going to last me a little more than a week because I'm an overpacker. So I had like a week's worth of clothing. I went from my big Southern sports oriented Greek life affiliated college in the South in South Carolina to my home in the North in Massachusetts, and the cultures are very different and the communities are very different. So I went from a highly populated life where I was doing things all the time, there was always people around me, to my tiny little town in Massachusetts where there was nobody and nothing to do. And that change in my environment so drastically, because we thought that we were only leaving for a week, was like a shock to my system of everything that you were doing in college, your mindset, the way that you approached food, the way you approached exercise, and the way that people talk about their bodies and food around you, that was all super messed up. And now we have to fix it because I was so suddenly removed from that environment where I noticed people at home don't earn their meals by going to the gym. People at home aren't afraid to eat cheese and think that if they do, it ruins their entire day, and on and on. So that's when I started to go through recovery. And like I said, I didn't go to like an outpatient treatment or anything like that. It was more of an internal process. I had a therapist at the time, which was really helpful. And yeah, through that entire time, I had a personal blog from my second year of college. I had a blog on Instagram, which is Sarah in Yellow, which is my Instagram account now. And I was just sharing my experience of being like the happy, healthy, fit friend. And then I was sharing my experience of, just kidding, I have an eating disorder. Who's shocked? Looking back on what I was dealing with. And then I was sharing my experience in recovery. And then I was sharing my experience realizing that helping other people with this is what I want to do with my life. Sharing my experience going through my health coaching certification. And now I share everything I've learned in my current experience, and I help others do the same. So that is the evolution of me, and also kind of how I ended up with an online presence that's centered around that as well.
Wow, thank you for sharing, Sarah. And there's three key points I'd like to touch on that I think really stood out for me. So the first part being, you shared as a child, it wasn't necessarily from a young age that you didn't like your body and therefore you started to manipulate your food. It was just your environment that created that internal food scarcity. I think that's something that not many of us talk about, because most of us just assume, I mean, I know this happened for you like a few years later, but I think so many just assume any kind of disordered eating only starts from wanting to change your body, but that actually isn't always the case, is it?
No, absolutely not. And I love that you point that out, because that is something that I didn't understand for a very long time, where eating disorders and food restrictions, internal food rules, they so often come as a coping mechanism for stress or trauma, or a way to make sense of the world when we're younger, when we don't understand our situation. It's not necessarily just, I don't like my body, so I'm going to go on a diet. It's not often that conscious, and it's not often that cause either.
Yeah, I think that's really key, because anorexia actually started before diet culture, like, believe it or not. I've done a lot of research around that, and that really baffled me. And then the more I research into that, have you heard of Tabitha Farrar?
No, I haven't.
She's a great recovery coach specifically for anorexia, and her theory is it's like genetic. So not everyone has the anorexia gene, but those that do, and it's lying dormant, if we go into a certain under body weight for our body, then the genes like switched on, and then the behaviors and that, I found that really interesting. I won't go into that, but I just think it's worth bringing up because that really interested me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all, because if that sounds like taboo to anybody or like hard to connect the dots, so much of the ways that we deal with a stressful situation or with trauma, whether we take a healthy coping mechanism or an unhealthy one, lies in our genetics, because we learn behaviors subconsciously through our genetics, through our family, through how they've responded in the past. So if you're skeptical of that, but then anyone's ever told you that you're similar to your mother, then there's a reason.
Exactly that. We keep repeating the same patterns that we learn as a child from our parents, unless we, go into personal and spiritual development, have therapy, get to know ourselves, all the stuff that, you and I do and we talk about. The second thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that where you were in college, it was so normal to have disordered behaviors.
Yeah.
It was normal to like skip food and to feel like you had to earn it. And that is the case with so many, isn't it? So many people.
Yeah. Yes. I could talk for so long about the college environment, and especially with the intersection of binge drinking culture in the US, where we treat it like it's normal to drink so much that you forget your entire evening every single night. And the drinking culture of my college too was so severe like that, where people would go to the hospital on a regular basis to get their stomach pumped because they drank too much. And many of my friends ended up in that situation because they hadn't eaten that day, because they wanted to look good in their clothes going out that night. And there's such a strong connection, and it's dangerous. It is genuinely very dangerous to be in those situations. But yeah, it was so normal to not eat all day because you were going out that night and you were going to drink your calories through alcohol. It was normal to skip food or manipulate food or use the gym to change your body because you wanted to look good in your clothes that night, or you just wanted to fit into the very strong beauty standard that we had at my campus, which was a petite, blonde, white woman. It's very like Southern culture of the US. And then I was in a sorority, I was in Greek life, and we didn't all live in our sorority house because my sorority was very big. It was about 300 of us, but we did all eat our meals at the house. We were required to. So lunch and dinner every single day, we were paying to eat there. So most of us did. You could choose not to, but you were paying for it. So most of us did because we were in college. We didn't have a lot of money. But we'd sit at these huge tables of like minimum 6 girls up to like 25 girls, and we would all talk about our food in the most subconscious way. Like, we didn't even realize we were doing it, but we'd be like, oh, I really want seconds, but I don't want everybody to see me go up to the buffet line and get more. And it's like, but you're hungry. Like, that's okay. Or you just want more food, and that's okay. But we all encouraged each other without even realizing what we were doing. We had all of these mindsets that we projected onto other people. Like, when I say everything's a projection, and it just made it worse for all of us. It is a very dangerous environment because women are subjected to so much from diet culture, so many beauty standards, and then we put us all together, and all of our insecurities, we just stack them on top of each other. It is, like I said, I could go on.
Yeah, a great question that I used to ask myself during my recovery journey when I was having triggers and like potentially wanting to like, I'll just try micro diet a little bit, was like, hold on a minute, who is profiting off my insecurity right now? And then that kind of got me angry. And the biggest thing, which I'm sure we're going to go into, but there's another point I want to raise with you before we do. But another point that worth noting at this point is, who you have around you online, the community, what you consume in terms of podcasts, books, TV even, has such a profound effect on how you feel about yourself. So if you can't change the environment you live in physically, it really is a case of setting boundaries and being the change you want to see in the world, and not talking about food and weight and body and judging people all the time. And I moved to the Netherlands from England like almost 5 years ago now. And I remember being so shocked that nobody in my fiance's family has ever spoken about weight, food, or body size ever. And people have had babies in the family, and it's such a breath of fresh air. I was like, hold on a minute, there's people in the world that don't talk about diets and body. I was like blown away. And that was a big catalyst for my recovery as well, to see that it's possible.
I think about that a lot. And I think about people who have gone through their life and just never struggled with food. And I'm like, it's not even envious, it's just curious. I'm like, what is that like? Like, because it is such a common experience, especially for women. But gosh, to find a family that doesn't bond over the negative food mindsets, that is so unique. So I'm very happy for you. That's amazing. But gosh, that must have been so strange for you to be like, I don't know. It's good though, because it shows you like it can be this way. It doesn't have to be. Every time I see my grandma, she asks me if I've lost weight and says, "Oh my God, you look so good. You look skinny." Because that's my grandmother every single time. I love her to death, but she doesn't get it, and that's how she is. But it's nice to be shown like it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to matter.
Yeah, it's like I say, a huge catalyst for me, because it was almost like, wait, so you're not born just to diet. You actually can be born to live a life that doesn't involve diets. It blew my mind. The third thing I wanted to bring up, and this is another reason why I love you and what you share online so much, Sarah, is your vulnerability. So you shared that you started a blog, like an Instagram, even when you was the quote fitness girl, you started it from there, you shared vulnerably. And then when you realize, wait a minute, I'm really in like an eating disorder and disordered behaviors here, you shared that too. Like, I think it's so important, isn't it, to be, not everyone can, and that they don't feel safe, and that's okay. But for you to be so vulnerable, people can relate so much to your journey just by you sharing with vulnerability and rawness.
I like to share on my Instagram every couple weeks or months, whenever I'm reminded of it, honestly. I'll share a couple like slides, like a photo set, and I like to compare and contrast. I write it as like what I used to post and what I post now, and I'll share like a photo comparison, like not like a body comparison, but I used to share on my stories, like, this is what I ate for lunch today. Here's how many calories, here's how many fats and carbs and protein. And then I'll share on my stories now, and it's like a food freedom approach, and you see the difference in my mindset. And I'll share the caption, like a screenshot of a caption I used to write, and it'll be like, oh, there's this one caption that comes up when I look through my old Instagrams that's like, it's from, I think, like 2018, and it's like, oh, I'm so proud of myself for making this decision to essentially start dieting, but like to choose the healthier lifestyle and pursue weight loss. And I look at the photo of myself and I'm like, I thought that I was so big and unhealthy, and I thought that being in a bigger body was something that was so bad. And I look at my mindset now and I'm like, it's so different. I've learned so much. I feel like I've been shown the light in so many ways, where my former mindsets are laughable to me, but I like to share them because it shows people, like we were saying in the beginning, that there is a path from where you are now, the ways that you feel, to where you want to be. Because like we said, we see people on Instagram all the time who are in the position that we want to be in with their body image and with their food mindset, and we wonder how they got there. So I love to share stuff like that.
Yeah. And you know what you're doing as well is giving people permission. Like, I was the fitness freak with the 6-pack, and my Instagram was called Miss Mini Machine. I cringe like at one point. I mean, unfortunately, that one did get hacked, and then I had to start all over again, like actually only a few months ago, but it is what it is. But you would be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if you experienced the same, Sarah, how many fitness people reach out to me and their page is obviously what you can imagine it to be, and they're struggling in the background, and that's what I was doing too. So my page was like, oh, hashtag six pack, and everyone was like, wow. And then behind the scenes, I was binging my face off, purging my face off, hating myself, and then posting an ab photo in the morning. Like, what you're doing is giving people permission to leave that lifestyle behind. Fitness is a big part of my life. It is yours too, and I want to go into that. But it's okay to want to change our identity, isn't it? In terms of the fitness person, the weight loss coach, into what you and I perhaps share as well.
Yes, I'm so happy you use that word identity, because that's exactly what it is. When we are so deeply focused on every morsel of food that we eat today, or what our body looks like, and wanting to change that, it does become our entire identity. So when there's any sort of threat to how you see yourself through that lens, either, you know, I ate a lollipop today that ruined my entire day of quote unquote healthy eating, so restriction, or I skipped the gym, I must not actually be the fit friend that I actually, you know, that I act like I am. Whenever there's that threat to our identity, it's terrifying. It's scary, because when we're so deeply obsessed with that part of our life, we forget that we're a person outside of that. And we have to be reminded of, this isn't my whole identity. This is a piece of my identity right now. The same way that being a food freedom and body image coach isn't my entire life. I have hobbies outside of this. I have a social life outside of this. I have passions outside of this. I have things that I spend my time on. But when all you're doing 24/7 is thinking about food and going to the gym, that's your entire life. So that threat to identity is very scary, very real. And I think that's what keeps us trapped for a very long time and afraid to recover or afraid to reform our behavior. But I don't know. Remember who you are outside of it, I guess.
Yeah, I always share like things that helped me was just like a simple mantra that I didn't believe to begin with, but it didn't feel too resistant, so I still had it on my mirror. And that was, my identity is a soul having a human experience. So therefore, whatever the fuck I decide I want to identify with, I don't have to identify with anything. I mean, ultimately, a soul on a human experience for me and my beliefs is like a walking ball of love and light. And so that's what I choose to identify as.
I love that. I love that.
And what do you see online that's like really problematic in terms of perhaps people that are in our kind of work, or at least trying to, and I don't believe they're doing this from a place of like badness on purpose, but there's things that people share that don't help. I'll leave you to expand on that.
Oh God. So much.
Yeah.
I definitely want to get into that girl trend, but another thing that immediately comes to mind is those posts or reels or TikToks that are like the weight loss transformation montage, with the message not being so much like, this is my weight before and my weight after, but this is how I used to feel about myself what in this bigger body, which is usually like, oh my God, I used to not take care of myself. I used to hate myself, blah, blah, blah. And then the weight loss transformation. And it's like, now I'm confident. And those drive me crazy, because weight loss does not make you confident, and weight loss does not make your body image issues go away. And you do not get to that goal weight and all of a sudden you're not restricting chocolate cake anymore and you can eat whatever you want. Like, that's such a lie. It's such a lie, because I am someone that got to my goal weight and then I went below my goal weight, and my goal weight was a goal weight I had for years and years and years, and it was a significant change from where I started. I did all of that quote unquote hard work, which was my disordered eating and then eating disorder. And I got to the goal weight and I looked in the mirror and I fucking hated myself. I looked in the mirror and I thought, and this is when I still believed that being in a bigger body was a bad thing, that the word fat was dirty, but I looked in the mirror and I was like, I look so fat. I look disgusting. I look terrible. I need to continue to lose weight. And I didn't like myself. And I still had to count out every single almond I ate, every single potato chip. I had to measure everything in MyFitnessPal. It didn't go away. It was just worse. It was so much worse. And it's so ironic because I was only at that weight for a short amount of time, like maybe a few months, because that was right before, that was my lowest point, essentially. I got to this point where I was like, I'm so angry. I'm heartbroken. I think heartbroken is the best word for it, where I got to that point and I expected to finally be happy, to have the everyday torment of the food thoughts and the body image thoughts to go away, and they didn't. And I felt so lied to and so let down. But I was only at that weight for a few months, and I look at it now and I'm like, I did all of that, what I considered at the time like hard work, but that restriction for years and years to get there. And then I got there and I didn't even appreciate it. I didn't even feel the way I expected to feel. I didn't have any positive thoughts towards my body when I was in that body, other than the momentary, like, oh, you took a photo of me and I look smaller. I'm happy for 10 seconds. And then I'd see a bad angle where I have, you know, like a double chin, and I'd be like, oh my God, I have to diet tomorrow. So that's something that drives me crazy, is the idea that people post online that weight loss will fix all your problems and make you confident, because that comes from inside, no matter what your body looks like.
In fact, even more so, like confidence, going to be like cheesy here, confidence is the sexiest thing you can wear. It's so true. And I've been in a smaller body as well. And I did get to a point where I liked the look of my body, but I was completely 100% consumed with keeping that body. And again, the same as you, weighing fucking spinach leaves. And I tore one in half one time. And then
oh my God.
like, what it's the obsession, isn't it? Like the obsessive mindset. It is not a way to live. And I would not go back ever to that body I had, no matter how praised it was in society, to have the same mindset. I wouldn't even do it for £1 million. No way.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you told me I had to live that way I did around food for one more day, I would just, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. Working with people now, helping them remove themselves from that mindset is so helpful to me too, because I'm reminded like how heavy every single day was, how difficult all the tiniest things had to be. If someone asked me if I wanted to go out to dinner, it wasn't a simple yes or no question. It was like, okay, well, where are we going? And let me look at the menu, and what can I order? And what did I already eat today? And how am I going to eat tomorrow to make up for it? Like it's mentally exhausting. It's so exhausting.
I remember it like it was yesterday. How is your relationship with food now? I mean, obviously it's great, but can you talk about, let me rephrase it in a different way actually, but I get a similar question, and I did a podcast episode about this. When you start your food freedom journey, I thought the same as well. I thought I would literally eat chocolate and pizza forever and never stop eating it and get bigger and bigger and bigger, but at least I'd be in quote food freedom. But it doesn't work like that either. There's like this, I don't even want to use the word balance, because that's like a dirty word as well, like using the diet industry, but this kind of equilibrium, like natural kind of, how do you teach your clients? Well, how do you guide your clients to find that within themselves, and how have you found it within yourself?
I think equilibrium is a great word for it. And I get I hear what you're getting at, which is before food freedom, this perception that if you give yourself permission to eat the less nutrient dense foods, like my favorite pizza, that's what I always wanted and lusted after, that you'll never stop, and therefore you'll never stop gaining weight. So this is why I created my food mindset, my food freedom course. But I could talk forever about my course, because it is like my brainchild, my baby. It's like me talking on a podcast on my own for like 6 hours. It is all of the lessons I want to give to people. But for my own personal experience with that first, I did eat more of those less nutrient dense foods at first when I first gave myself permission, because again, I had a scarcity mindset around them, which meant that my brain saw them as a limited resource. And every time I allowed myself to have like pizza or ice cream or all of those foods that I deemed off limits that I didn't allow myself to keep in the house or order out, I ate more of them at first because my brain saw them like presents on Christmas morning. Like, oh my God, this is a special occasion. It's so exciting. Let's hope we get everything we wanted. Let's get as much as possible. And so I would eat past fullness. I would essentially binge it. And that was the case in the beginning for me. But I always like to make this analogy. If you receive presents on Christmas morning, it's exciting because it happens once a year. If you woke up the day after Christmas and you repeated the same day and you had all of those presents again, it'd be exciting, but not as exciting because it happened yesterday. And if you did that 10 days in a row, it would get old. And if you did that a month straight, it would get really old. And it would go from being presents on Christmas morning to just a regular day. And that's the same thing that happened with me with food. At first, pizza was so exciting. I ate as much of it as I possibly could. And then the 5th time I ate it, it was still really good. I was still really happy, but it wasn't as exciting. And the 20th time I ate it, it was just food. And now all of it is just food. So that's that equilibrium where I can eat a salad for lunch and pizza for dinner, and one of them doesn't have to cancel the other out. I didn't have to eat the salad to earn the pizza. I can eat as much of the salad as I want and then be done with it. I can eat as much of the pizza as I want and then be done with it, and know that no matter what the food is, I can always come back to it because there will always be more. I can always order another takeout pizza. I can always order or buy or make whatever the food I'm restricting is. I can finish the pint of ice cream and there will be more if I choose to have it. And because I recognize that it's always available, I don't feel like I need to binge it. I don't feel like I need to conserve it. It's not scarce anymore. It's just normal. So that's my experience there. So for as far as how I eat now, I get this assumption a lot that, oh my gosh, you embrace food freedom, you must eat a bunch of junk. And I honor my cravings. But gosh, if I'm using this pizza example so strongly, like I said, that's my favorite food. The last time I had it, I think 2 weeks ago, my partner and I ordered out because we were on the road and we needed something easy, and it was so good, I remember. But before that, I think it had been like a good month. Like, I don't know. I don't even remember because it's not that significant anymore. Whereas if this was the past, it probably would have been more frequent because it was such an off-limits food that I would eventually cave and I wouldn't honor the cravings in time. And I would probably be able to give you like a date and time that I ate it because I was so obsessed. So I think that me not even being able to remember is a great testament to how I don't have to deal with those obsessive thoughts anymore. And then I can still honor my cravings and eat my favorite. So that's my experience. Any questions there? I'm happy to talk more about like my clients as well and how I help them with this. But
yeah, I experienced exactly the same as you. And it's interesting that when you shared that you're the girl who always had like a snack in her purse, I'm the girl now, and this is from PTSD from like all the past fucking eating disorder trauma. I always have to have, I mean, I don't have to because I know I can literally go to the shop and get it, but I have like a chocolate drawer that's an abundant amount of chocolate. So whenever I want it, I'll go and get it, and I just have it when I want it. And that still, I guess, is a safety. My body feels safe that there's enough there. So I'm curious for you, and I guess everyone is different as well, but do you recommend that clients have an abundant amount of food there? Or are you a kind of coach who says, don't have it in the house, but if you want it, go and get it?
No, I'm definitely the former. Definitely, like I say, the best way to stop feeling out of control around a food is to allow yourself to keep it in the house. Like if I could print that, too wordy, but if I could print that on a t-shirt, I would. Because I remember my own experiences. Like when I lived with my parents still, my mom would go to the grocery store and bring home our favorite potato chips, and I would scream at her. And I'd be like, if these are in the house, I'm going to eat them. They're so unhealthy. They're so bad for you, blah, blah, blah. And I would get so angry at her. And then I would binge eat them that night because I knew they were in the house. So I couldn't stop thinking about them. And so if you start keeping those foods in the house, at first it's going to feel like that because that is your scarcity mindset around food. But again, presents on Christmas morning, as you normalize that food being there, it gets less and less exciting to that it's in the cupboard downstairs, and you're less and less likely to grab for it unless you have a genuine craving or you're actually hungry. So I think I knew that I had made a lot of progress in my own food mindset when I found this. I remember it was like a bag of those little strawberry like candies that, like, I don't know about you, but like my grandmother always has. I love those. And I found a bag of them in the back of my pantry that had been there for months, and I had forgotten about them. And that's how I knew that I had made progress, because having foods like that, less nutrient dense foods, candy, salty foods, junk, whatever we deem as like less nutrient dense or junk, I would be hyper aware of their presence. It was almost like they were like glowing through the cabinet doors. I would know exactly where they were, how much was left, and how much I was going to let myself eat.
Yeah.
The fact that I was able to forget that they were there for months, for so long, that I was like, these are old, I don't want them anymore, and throwing them in the trash instead of eating them as soon as I found them. That was just mind blowing to me, to be like, wow, I've just been doing other things. My brain has been other places, and I forgot that these are here. And now that I found them, I feel nothing. It was crazy.
I think that circles back to what you shared at the beginning, how people can see people like us, like living in food freedom and thinking I could never be that person. It really does resonate what you've shared, because I remember this was only a few months ago and I was almost angry at myself that I forgot, right? I'd bought 2 tubs of Ben and Jerry's, they were on offer. And I put them in the freezer, and no word of a lie, for about a week and a half, I forgot they were there. And I opened the freezer and I was like, oh, what the actual F? I was annoyed that how the hell could I forget there was 2 tubs? And I was like, wow. In every little thing that happens, it reminds you how far you've come. But if I'd listened to mine and yours conversation when I was at the start of my recovery, I would have been like, that there's absolutely no way on this earth that could ever happen to me. But trust me, I would never have thought I could forget about 2 tubs of Ben and Jerry's. Really? But
yeah,
it happens, doesn't it, when it's just
yes.
food?
And it feels good. It feels good to forget. I also have a tub of ice cream in my freezer that we've probably eaten like half of. Like, we've definitely opened it. It's not that I've completely forgot it's there, but we've had it since the beginning of the summer, because I know it's there, and I haven't really craved ice cream, so I haven't used it. Ugh, and it's extremely impressive to think about where you used to be with that mindset, and to be able to see progress in moments like that. As far as your question earlier about how I help my clients with that, like I said, I have my online course called Freedom University, self-promo, but I created this course because food freedom is just life-changing, and it's so hard to see how life-changing it is until you're embracing it, until you're practicing it. And I created this course because there's so many women who reach out to me who want help in this area, and I wanted to create that strategic approach. So the way that the course functions is, we've got 6 modules, so they're all broken up into like 6 core topics or mindset shifts. So for example, one of the modules is all about developing self-trust. So like I said in the beginning, the ways I would describe food freedom are confidence and calmness and trust. And there's multiple video lectures within each module. So I think it's almost 6 hours of video content on my best practices, my strategies, my mindset shifts, everything that I know about this process. And then there's a workbook that goes along with it that you get access to, that you can download, and it's got more education as well as activities, because this is an individual process. You're not working with me one-on-one. So there's those video lectures, the visual component, and then the written component, or the doing the work in your own time to really develop those new habits. But I think what's most important to reference here is some of the topics that I cover that you might not expect to be in a course like Food Freedom, where I have a lesson dedicated to the idea of being afraid to gain weight and how your body image intersects with embracing food freedom. Because I know for me, the number one thing I was afraid of, like we said, was, oh my gosh, I'm going to give myself permission to eat all these less nutrient dense foods, and I'll never stop gaining weight. So releasing that fear of weight gain, developing the self-trust there. I also have a lesson in there on boundaries and setting boundaries in your relationship. Like we were talking about how your family talks about food. when you're healing your relationship with food internally, you have to do as much as you can to heal your external environment too. And unfortunately, we can't change other people's minds, but we can set boundaries. So there's a lesson on boundaries. And then, of course, everything I can cover in terms of food freedom, everything from releasing calorie counting, deciding for yourself, do I need to be calorie counting? Do I need to heal my gut? Do I need to cook at home versus eating out? I help all of the students answer those questions in their own way so that they genuinely feel confident. I know that this is the best practice for myself. Spoiler, the answer is usually you don't need to be counting calories. You don't need to heal your gut. But approaching everything like that, as well as topics like why do we binge eat and why do I feel like I need to be in a smaller body? I really aimed to answer that question of why in the course, because I don't know about you, but for me, understanding why something works or why something is the way it is, that's what makes it stick in my brain. So
yeah,
we so often tell ourselves with food struggles too, like, oh, I binge eat because I lack willpower, not, oh, I binge eat because I'm not getting enough physical calories during the day, or because this is an emotional response, or because this is a trauma response. So answering those questions of why your mindset is the way it is around food, and then giving practical strategies to undo that or release it, that's how I teach food freedom. That's how I make that path from where you are now to where you want to be, to where the people you see on Instagram are. That's how I make it clear. So sorry, I could talk about my course forever. I love it. It is my baby. And then we have our Facebook group. So
it sounds amazing, Sarah. And what I also love about it as well, which is interesting, so that's the last kind of question I had for you about how to deal with weight gain, because in my opinion, personal and professional opinion, we cannot fully heal our relationship with food unless we're doing or continue to do body image work, because most of it is the fear of weight gain, right? So if you just do the food stuff, that can, you can get progress, but ultimately to heal it and to live in true freedom, you have to make peace with your body and understand all the things that you teach and what's in your course. So for the last couple of minutes, would you mind sharing 3 to 5 tips or action steps that you recommend for clients to support them through potential weight gain? Because it doesn't necessarily mean definite weight gain, but it's the fear of weight gain, isn't it, that's ultimately keeping people stuck?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to approach things like that where it's body image is mental, body image is internal, which is why weight loss doesn't make you happy, which is why being in a smaller body doesn't make you happy, but it's also why people in larger bodies also struggle with their confidence as far as their body. So I like to approach things like this that are internal and mental, but they also regard our physical body, like a fear of weight gain, as approaching both sides of that. So the mental and the physical. As far as the mental or the mindset around accepting weight gain, a couple best practices for myself. Number one, just to go right off the gate with being brutally honest with yourself, anticipating the worst case scenario, and not in the way of assuming like, oh my gosh, I'm going to gain weight, it's going to be horrible, and making that your reality, assuming that that's what's going to happen, that that's going to be the truth. But I like to mentally work through with someone as someone with an anxiety disorder. I find a lot of benefit in imagining that worst case scenario, in the sense of talking myself through what I'm going to do if that does happen, because then you prove to yourself it's survivable. This is actually in the workbook for Freedom University. I give this example of how to peel back the anxious, fearful thoughts and find how you're going to survive. But I use this example of, I'm going to gain weight and my partner won't find me attractive anymore. My friends won't want to be friends with me anymore, which of course sounds illogical, but these are the things we tell ourselves subconsciously or consciously. I won't be treated seriously at work. None of my clothes will fit. All of those worst case scenarios. And I write them all out. I have you write them all out. And then I say to you in the course, okay, now write out the next steps you'll take. Okay, none of your clothes fit anymore. Logically, although this isn't ideal, what will you do? Well, you'll need to buy more clothes, and you can do that slowly to accommodate your budget. You can sell your old clothes on Poshmark or ThredUp or whatever it is, or to your sister, whatever it is, gift them, donate them. You have this opportunity to reinvent your style if you need to buy new clothes, list out the stores that carry your new size, blah, 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 and working through all of the practical steps you'll take to prove to yourself that even if your worst case scenario happens, that you'll survive it. So that's the mental side of it. As far as the physical side, there are so many little steps we can take day to day to make the body changing process, our body changing, whether it's weight gain, weight loss, just something that we're more open to. So everything from, of course, the big one, not weighing yourself, getting rid of the scale. Very hard to do, but very life changing. I haven't weighed myself in, I think, like 2 years, and have been judging my wellness based on how my body's feeling. You know, if I'm sleeping well, if my stress levels are low, if I'm eating a diverse plate. Not weighing yourself, having an accountability partner, like somebody in your life that is supportive, that you trust, to just talk to about this experience. That's why I love the Facebook group that the course has, because we're able to collaborate, talk about our struggles, our wins. If someone doesn't have something like that in their physical life, so having an accountability partner, someone to support you through the process. I like to keep an extra pair of pants or something like that on hand. Like, this sounds so so random, I guess, but if you're really afraid of going up like 3 pant sizes and none of your clothes fitting, go buy a size that's too big for you now. So that if you need them, go buy, I don't know, you can get them at the thrift store, but you can find a cute pair of jeans for like $7-8 at the thrift store, and keep them in the back of your closet to satisfy that fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to gain weight overnight, which won't happen, but I'm going to gain weight overnight and go up 3 pant sizes and then my clothes will fit. Okay, go buy a pair of pants that's 3 sizes bigger to have that comfort. It's like keeping that chocolate in your drawer in your house, knowing that it's there, that it's always accessible if you need it. So I could go on and on about the little strategies, and I teach so much of that in the course because it's such a big component to this process, and it's in the beginning of the course because it's really important going into the food freedom mindset. But that's what comes to mind right off the top of my head. Anything you want to add?
I would like to share about the wardrobe situation. I loved how you said it gives you an opportunity to reinvent your style. When I gained weight through recovery, I remember trying to get jeans to fit. So my shape is like a small waist but big legs. And so it would either have to be like really massive on the waist to fit my legs, or I couldn't get it over my calf to fit my. And so I remember just thinking, what if I just decided never to wear jeans again? And I was like, oh my God, that's like the freest decision ever, apart from to be free around food. And so now I just don't own a single pair of jeans, and that's okay. And I can still wear beautiful clothes.
Yes.
I just don't wear jeans anymore. And so it's, if you see it as a positive, because it is, right? You either potentially gain weight, and what else have you gained?
Yes.
You've also lost your eating disorder. You've also lost the control and the obsession. You've also lost other stuff. Yes, I've gained weight and I've gained my fucking life back. It's worth it.
I love the mantra of, I haven't let myself go. I've set myself free, because that's exactly how it feels. I'm so glad you said that. We are on the same wavelength. I love to view weight gain as, what else have you gained? I've gained not being afraid to eat peanut butter anymore. And I've gained meals out with my friends without stress, where I'm actually present in our conversation and not obsessing over the menu. I'm not too in my head about food, and I can actually be there and enjoy myself and have fun. I've gained genuine satisfaction from my food because I'm no longer eating unseasoned boiled broccoli and rice. And I've gained flavor, I've gained satisfaction, I've gained social life, I've gained embracing my traditions, my culture, my like everything from your favorite foods at holidays that you weren't allowing yourself to eat, that grandma made special for you but you didn't allow yourself to have. You gain that connection with your family, with your traditions, with your culture, of your country, of your city. There's so much you gain, where you often gain weight in the process. I don't like to see weight gain as like, or weight loss as the end result. I just like to see it as something that happens along the way, not even a side effect, but it's just something that happened along the way, but it's not the focus of the journey. The focus of the journey is everything else that you gain. So it's almost like driving to the vacation of your dreams and you hit traffic along the way. It's like, the traffic wasn't ideal. It's not what I anticipated or wanted, but I'm okay with it because now we're here standing on the sunny beach and life is beautiful.
And you couldn't have gotten there without the traffic jam anyway, because the traffic jam happened.
Exactly.
So it's that acceptance piece, isn't it? I mean, we need to wrap up, but me and you could literally chat for hours about this. But the acceptance piece, like you're on the way to the vacation, the traffic jam's there, you can sit in the traffic jam and moan about the traffic jam, or you can look
and turn around and go home and never go on vacation.
Yes. Or you can sit in the car, play some silly games, look out for, I don't know, something outside the window. Like you can enjoy the journey, right? And that's cliche, but we only get one life. We only get one day at a time. The only time we have is now. And I choose living food freedom and body love. And I know you do too.
And it is the best decision I've genuinely ever made. Truly. I know that's hyperbolic, but it is true. It is. I mean, it's given me everything. It's given me everything. It's given me the job of my dreams. It's given me the confidence to travel. It's given me the best relationship of my life. Like all of these things that I never anticipated beyond the food freedom or the body acceptance. It's truly given me my best life.
Amen to that. I think that's a great place to end. And you can also, those of you that obviously are my listeners that aren't following Sarah, you can see Sarah's passion and love for life in her reels and in her Instagram. I'm not saying that other people aren't as passionate, but you can feel the absolute like passion and the freedom that she lives in. So go and follow her, go and buy her course as well, which will all be linked below. But Sarah, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. It's been amazing.
Yeah. And I just want to say, if you do join the course, I'd be so happy to have you. Send me a message that you found me through this podcast, because I would love to let Victoria know and everything like that. But that would be so cool. I would love to know if you guys found me through this. But yes, thank you so much for having me. Such a good conversation. Again, I could talk to you about this stuff forever. It is my life, and it just opens so many doors. It is so worth it. If you're listening to this and thinking, I'm so afraid to gain the weight, I'm so afraid to give myself that unconditional permission to eat, you give yourself unconditional permission to live too, and it is so worth it.
Oh, cold ship, like do it. Like when you were saying that, like I was just internally like, just do it, just do it, just do it, because it's so freaking worth it. And you know what? We get older, our bodies change anyway over time. So do you want to truly live, or do you want to be like on your deathbed, like wishing you'd ate the cake and gone in the sea and all of that? But that shit is cliche for a reason. It's true. So
yeah. I love the little cliche one, like nobody prints your weight on your gravestone. Nobody cares.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, well, I think I need to press stop record, but let's start record. But I think maybe part 2 will, if you want Sarah to come back on part 2, obviously let me and Sarah know, because we can chat easily for another hour. So thank you, Sarah, and I will obviously tag you in all the things. And listeners, screenshot this episode, tag me and Sarah, and we'll share you with our audience. Thank you, Sarah.